All right. I've waited that obligatory 10 seconds. It looks like it's working. I see that we have at least one on the icon there. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it is Sunday, the 29th of May, 2022. And you're wondering, why would you be bringing up the Grinch? It's not Christmas time. Well, I just finished listening to Mr. Mercurus' recent commentary and analysis. And hi, Kate. How you doing? Kate Emstead. Say hi to George Webb for me, please. Okay. Thank you for getting hold of me. Uh, at any rate, Mr. Mercurus, and we'll talk about George Webb here in a minute if I remember. I'm 5 by 5. Great. Uh, Mr. Mercurus, who I have told you about before, along with several others, gave a very interesting commentary here a few minutes ago, and the entire commentary on the video is in the description box below. Hi, Roosevelt. And you need to listen to it. And I agree with everything that he says there. And I was really kind of surprised. And I'll tell you what I was surprised about here in a minute. But I agreed with everything with the exception of at the very end, he says that the Western leaders have to start listening to voices of reason like Henry Kissinger. And at that point, I almost want to put my finger down my throat. but I understand what he's saying because he's referring directly to Kissinger telling the Western nations, and particularly the Ukraine, that they need to negotiate with Russia like post haste before they lose everything. And Kissinger sees the writing on the wall as well, even though he's one of the architects of this entire thing, no doubt. But at any rate, that deserves a little more analysis for later. But I want to go back to Mr. Mercurus and what he's talking about, which is the reason why I titled this video Biden's Green is the Grinch. So apparently, Mr. Mercurus is talking about that several of the Western leaders, Macron from France, Schultz, Germany, and then there were several others, against the wishes of some of the other Western leaders, called Putin on the phone and they had a conversation. I don't think it was a conference call, but apparently the same basic things were said in each interview. And I'll let you listen to Mr. Mercurus's commentary to get the point of that. But what I thought was interesting, and this is again why I say that I don't think Putin is playing the World Economic Forum game. I don't believe he's for the New World Order. I think he is actually given the shaft to those people. But there are people that want to continue to claim that he is with the WEF and Schwab, etc., because that fulfills their agenda in trying to say that certain things are going to happen and that Russia is responsible for a lot of the things that are going on. Be that as it may, the transcript of the call pointed something out that I think, again, points to Putin standing against what's happening in the world right now. And that is that he directly accused the Western leaders and named Biden by name. That makes him he and Trump are in bed together to take down Biden. Yeah, right. But at any rate, he attacked Biden's green policy up front and said that Biden's and the West's economic policies are to blame for the shortages today. And you can read that entire thing as being everything from the medical response to the shutdowns of our pipelines to the destruction of food supply companies to the situation with the baby formula to the difficulties in, of course, the oil markets, everything, the food shortages, everything. And I said this, and a lot of us have said this from the very beginning. Biden is anti-American. He wants to destroy America and the Western supposed free nations. He's supposed to be the leader of the free world, and he's locking them all up, and he's throwing away the key. Putin actually attacked him for that, and Macron and these other Western leaders for going along with the insanity of Biden. And again, I know Biden's a puppet. I know that. But the point is that Biden's the figurehead, and so Putin's pointing at Biden as being the figurehead, even if the other Western organizations are behind it. And obviously he knows about the WEF. He knows about the New World Order. I think you've seen my t-shirt that we got when we went to Nellis Air Force Base when Putin was fighting ISIS and we wouldn't. And so we were out there demonstrating against the United States being the wussy that it was, and that Putin was going after ISIS. And I think you saw the t-shirt where it says, Putin says New World Order, nyet. He's grabbing his sunglasses, Anyway, this isn't to lionize, as some commentators will say. This isn't to lionize Putin. It's to show you that somebody's saying it the way it is. And so Putin's going to be hated for this, and the Russians are going to be pointed at as trying to destroy the Western leadership, which is so important to the world's survival, which is a bunch of BS. If anything, we've torn it apart. We're the ones that have done it. We're the ones that even tyrannically and wickedly, evilly, is that a word? Evilly? With evil, locked down our people and took away their livelihoods and are trying to take away their rights. Well, Putin called it out. Our economic policies, and he mentioned the green policies especially, specifically. And we've talked about the fact that our electric grid is so poor that there's no way, if everybody was forced to go onto an electric car, there's no way that the grid could support it. But that's okay too, because they're really trying to get rid of your independent freedom of transportation, of travel. So the reason why I wanted to come on is to point out that Biden and all of this green nonsense is nothing more than the way to destroy America and the freedom-loving people in the world. That's all it is. And it's a war against you. And it's being pushed by whom else? The IC, as I've often said, who are the front men, sort of, for the bankers and the New World Order, etc. They're the guys that are run by the real Luciferians. So I think that this is another indication when Putin says, I know about Pelosi's husband, I could give a shit, frankly. I don't think it means a damn thing, frankly. But at any rate, Putin is again showing that he's willing to attack the powers that be in the New World Order and the World Economic Forum, Davos, and the UN even, and the oligarchs who really tried to destroy Russia. They stole a lot of money from the Russian people. That's why I say I don't think Putin is really in on this whole thing with Schwab and Harari and all that. I really don't. And this is another example of why I think that. So he's called out Biden for being the Grinch that stole not Christmas, although you could say that too, that Biden is the Grinch that stole the economic welfare, that's a bad term, the economic well-being of the West. Russia's doing fine, just like we said they would. The sanctions have done nothing but strengthen the Russian ruble, and they're basically in the command seat for this energy problem in Europe, as an example. And as I said, they're beating the Western armies just like I said they would. And I know Ukraine's not the best, but we're throwing a lot of money and a lot of other things there to try to keep them from succeeding or to cause a long-term war. And Russia's just walking all over it, just like I said they would, and a lot of other people. Colonel McGregor, Brian off of the New Atlas, Mr. McCurris here that I've included down below in the description box, the Drazen report, and a lot of other people that have looked at this thing. And we've taken a lot of hits and a lot of criticism, being accused of being Russian propagandists and Putinists. No, we're just military guys that know how to read a map and can see what in the hell's going on. So that's really all it is. So I just wanted to come on and give this information on Putin. Please go listen to Mr. McCurris's report. Again, it's kind of long. He takes a lot of time, about 40 minutes, but it's detailed. And throughout the whole thing, the only thing I didn't find too positive was him thinking that Kissinger was somebody that was a possible hero in the situation to get the Western nations out of the mess that they put themselves in. But again, I know that that Kissinger was part of the reason why we're in this situation. Okay, I didn't buy that, but Makuris is just looking at it from his point of view, and that's fine. But everything else he said is very good, and I would like you to go look at it. Okay. I was going to say something else about the Russian movements, but I think that'll probably be it for right now. If it occurs to me what I was going to say, I'll come back a little later and give you a little bit more information. What's the more weapons we send Ukraine, the less we have to protect. Oh yeah, well that's now you see that's part of the deal. Several I don't know. It's been a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, and I've mentioned this whole thing several times. There were people back in the 40s and 30s and 40s, and this even actually goes back to the Pike letter, which people say is a bogus counterfeit, but that doesn't matter because the principles that are said in the Pike letter are all true. That the way they would destroy the United States and liberty as a whole, and especially Christendom, would be through the use of foreign wars to deplete the treasures and the lives, taking the blood of the people and their treasures away from them, weaken them, and then they could take over. That was all part of the plan. That's exactly what's going on. So us sending weapons there and all of that and depleting our own resources is just absolutely proving that the Pike letter and those people who explained how they would take down our treasure, our money, our finances, and our blood and defeat us that way through these endless wars and wars in perpetuity and lies and deceits and false flags, etc., etc. They're exactly doing it. And Putin's called them on it. I don't honestly think he would do that talking to the Western nations unless he was telling the truth. He really has no reason not to. Is this part of a grand drama? He's crossing Klaus Schwab, Harari, and all those leaders that were there worshiping Harari as the great prophet of the WEF, saying that, you're going to get hacked like all other life on earth and be controlled. Your free will is going to be taken from you. If you know anything about Scripture, be it Hebrew Scripture or Hinduism or any of these things, the attack on free agency is devilish. Okay? Harari may just well be that false prophet of, maybe it wasn't the Catholic Pope after all, which I was never quite sure of for reasons I won't go into. But Harari's been called the prophet, Klaus Schwab's and the WEF's prophet, and he's demonic. He's a demonic, horrible, evil individual, just like the rest of them over there. And all those world leaders are applauding him and giving him standing ovations and calling him the true prophet. Look out for this guy. He's Jewish too. Did you know that? Yeah, he's Jewish. He doesn't practice his religion, Judaism. He practices a form of Luciferianism, and apparently it's even worse than that. Okay, go ahead and listen to Mr. Mercouris if I recall what it was I wanted to say about the Russians and their movements right now. Um, I'll come back on. Basically, I think it had something to do with Russia is probably going to have to go further into Ukraine than they wanted to, and it's because the Western leaders will not swallow their pride. They can see what's happening, but they can't admit that they were wrong because they'll lose face. And so they're looking for a way to save face. They would rather kill you than lose face. Do we really want these kind of people? Do we really want to follow these types of people? Of course not. I don't think Putin has a terrible cancer, Mary Brewer. I think that was all propaganda. I mean, men his age will get a prostate problem, but apparently it really wasn't to do with blood or anything. I had a good friend that had a prostate problem, and it was easily taken care of. It's not necessarily life-threatening, especially somebody like Putin. He gets checkups probably twice a year, if not more. They catch it at a very early stage. I think it was just a way to try to probably get to influence the thoughts of the Russian people, anything to cast doubt on what's going on. Am I saying that, as well as on the situation with those in his government that may be against him? Sure. I mean, we have that in this country. It's obvious. I talked about the war between the different intelligence agencies to gain power back in the Boston bombing was a good example of that. So that still goes on. That's pretty much been leveled off now. The whole IC is on board now with destroying us and life on Earth, but at least the way it is right now. And Harari, of course, is talking about everybody being chipped and that we won't have free will, and that they'll know everything we do, even every thought we have, and that they will control our thoughts and control what we do, and that we will just be basically robots and then slowly eradicated, or maybe quickly. So anyway, I'll just leave it at that. I'll start. Yeah, they are. Well, they already do know our thoughts because they're being demonically inspired. That's why our prayer and our connection to God, the actual supreme being, and I'm not going to dictate to you how you look at that, but that's why it's so important, and that's why I moved over from talking about this kind of thing so much into trying to talk a little bit more about our spiritual health. And even though I talk from I don't really talk from a biblical perspective, as a lot of you know, but I have a lot of respect for that, and I put it into my presentations and my discussions, along with what I've learned by my own personal experience. So I put all of that together. Okay. Oh, what was that? Hillary Clinton said her prostate hurt too. Some of you people you're just funny as all get out. That's pretty good. All right. Let's see. What's this say? Roy, please look at Bo Polanyi biblical cycles as it relates to financial market. Well, yeah, I know. Everything is cyclical. I've talked about that too. Thank you. Yeah, everything is cyclical. There's nothing new under the sun. It's not necessarily the same, but it does rhyme, is the way I've heard it said. And I think that's absolutely true. I think that's exactly right. So Russia is kicking butt, like I said they would, and Putin is calling the West out for their failed policies, which is a nice way of saying you're trying to be tyrants over your people and take over the world, kill everybody, and you'll be the only ones in power. And Putin's saying it ain't going to happen because, well, it may still happen, but Putin's calling it out. So again, I don't think that he is on the WEF side at all. And Biden is his green. He said it. Remember, Biden's admitted it, and I put it up on my posts here on my community board and on Twitter. And I think I mentioned in a video, in a speech in Japan, Biden said that, no, there's not really a problem with supply. We're actually cutting it off and raising the prices to force the Great Reset and the transition into green technology, which is green technology is a lie. Okay, it can't work. Not as part of an integrated system with a lot of redundancy using gas. Petroleum can be clean. We have very good clean internal combustion engines now. It's not like it was back in the 20s. And even if we change, why isn't China or why isn't Russia? You see, so it's all to take down the United States and liberty across the board. Look what they're doing on the Second Amendment and the First Amendment. It's about attacking us as a people. So Biden's Green Deal, he said, was the rising of prices was on purpose to force the transition to green energy and, of course, the Great Reset. In other words, stop any progress of the American people and make them totally dependent upon an evil, corrupt group of leaders in the government. That's really what it's about. Okay, I've already talked too much already. I just wanted to throw this up real quick so that you would know that Putin came out and actually attacked Biden and the Green Deal of the West. Okay? He says that's an economic policy that is unworkable. Even if we had a perfect electrical supply grid, it wouldn't work. All right? Go listen to Mr. Mercouris. I think you'll find it interesting. I'll talk to y'all later out here.